All right, so we're diving deep today into Deuteronomy 6 to 7.
Yeah, a passage that's pretty familiar, I'd say, to most folks.
Definitely a staple in church and, family discussions. But we're going beyond the surface level today, right?
Absolutely. We've got a whole stack of sermons and illustrations from churches all over, and let me tell you, these pastors are getting creative,
Oh, yeah, they're pulling out all the stops.
weaving in history and pop culture, even a little sports analogy here and there. It's really fascinating to see how they're bringing this verse to life in fresh new ways.
Yeah, so our mission today is to unearth those unique perspectives, right? To see how these pastors are taking Deuteronomy 6 to 7, beyond the typical Sunday school lesson and really making it resonate with their congregations.
Exactly. And hopefully we can glean some insights that'll be helpful for, pastors and Bible study leaders looking for fresh material.
Absolutely. So let's jump right in. One of the first things that struck me was how SCN Live framed Deuteronomy 6 to 7 as a journey.
Mm. A journey?
Yeah, not just a one-time event or a checklist you can mark off. It's a lifelong commitment to weaving faith into the very fabric of your family and community.
That's a really interesting way to put it.
Yeah, and they use the story of Abraham and Sarah to illustrate this point.
Oh, wow, that's perfect. Their decades-long wait for a child.
Right. They emphasize that living out this verse requires that same kind of long-haul faith, that willingness to trust God's timing and lean into his promises even when we don't see immediate results.
It's a powerful reminder that faith formation is a marathon, not a sprint, and it requires patience, persistence, and a deep trust in God's faithfulness.
Absolutely. And speaking of persistence, Highest Praise Church had this really interesting take on the actions speak louder than words angle.
Okay. I'm intrigued.
They used a sports analogy to drive the point home, comparing parents to a football coach, specifically Coach Kelly.
Oh, wow. Okay, so demanding to see the plays in action, not just hear about them.
Exactly. It's not enough to just talk about faith. Got to live it out so the kids really get it.
I love that. It's like saying, show me the faith, don't just tell me about it.
Right. And this leads us to another interesting perspective from North Point Church. They're taking a strong stance on parents being the primary disciples of their children, even going so far as to call the home a mission field.
Wow, a mission field. That's pretty intense.
It is. But it really highlights the weight of responsibility that comes with parenting, right? They're essentially saying that shaping our children's faith is our primary mission, our calling, our most important work.
It's a powerful reminder that discipleship starts in the home.
And it's not just about imparting knowledge, it's about creating a culture of faith within the family docs. Paradox Church touched on this, emphasizing the importance of integrating faith into everyday life.
Okay, so not just Sunday mornings and Bible studies.
Exactly. It's about those spontaneous conversations, the little rituals, the way we respond to challenges, the way we celebrate victories. It's about making faith a constant presence, not just a compartmentalized activity.
It's about weaving faith into the very fabric of our lives so that it becomes second nature, a lens through which we view the world and make decisions.
Yes. And that's where Abundant Life Church comes in with this sense of urgency. They're talking about a race to win the hearts of our children before the world does.
Oh, wow. That's a strong image.
It is. They emphasize strong relationships as the key to passing on values effectively. And they even brought in research from the Fuller Youth Institute to back this up.
Oh, really? What did the research say?
Apparently, kids with 5 or more solid adult relationships in the church are far more likely to stick with their faith.
That's fascinating. It really highlights the importance of community, of surrounding our children with a network of caring adults who can support them and reinforce the values we're trying to instill.
Right. It takes a village, as the saying goes. And speaking of villages, Limitless Church California throws in this really interesting historical tidbit. They delve into ancient Near Eastern family structures, which were much broader than our modern nuclear families.
Okay, yeah, I'm kind of picturing like a big extended family.
Exactly. They talked about servants, extended family, this whole community raising kids together.
So it wasn't just the parents' responsibility.
Right. Suddenly that impress them on your children
Yeah.
line from Deuteronomy 6 to 7 takes on a whole new dimension.
It becomes a collective effort, a shared responsibility of the entire community.
Okay, so we've got this idea of long-haul faith, of leading by example, of making the home a mission field, of integrating faith into every aspect of life, and of building a supportive community.
Yeah.
It seems like we're starting to see a tapestry emerge here a rich and multifaceted approach to Deuteronomy 6 to 7.
It's beautiful, isn't it? These pastors are taking this familiar verse and revealing its hidden depths, its enduring relevance for our lives today.
I know, I'm excited to see what other insights they have to offer. This is turning into a deep dive indeed.
So, we've been talking about this idea of creating a culture of faith in the home, right? But Abundant Life Church brought up a really interesting challenge we face these days.
Oh yeah, they were talking about how even seemingly innocent things can be used to push agendas that might not align with our values.
Exactly. It's like a constant filter.
It's like we're in this battle for our kids' hearts and minds.
And they used a really interesting illustration to make this point, something I honestly never expected to hear in a sermon.
Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. They talk about how even a children's cartoon can subtly promote certain values or worldviews.
It really is a wake-up call to be more discerning about what our kids are consuming, right?
It makes you realize that we can't just be passive about the messages that they're being bombarded with. We have to be proactive about instilling our own values.
And that ties in with what Highest Praise Church was saying about the home being a refuge, right?
Oh, yeah, that was a good one.
Like a place of peace and joy in the midst of all the chaos and confusion of the world.
It's like we need to create this countercultural space where our kids can experience the love and grace of God in a very tangible way.
And that's where the whole idea of modeling comes in again, right?
Absolutely. If we want our homes to be places of peace and joy, we need to be living that out ourselves.
Our kids need to see us handling stress with grace, resolving conflict with love, and finding joy even when things are tough.
It's about showing them that faith isn't just a set of rules or a Sunday morning routine. It's a way of life.
A way of life that can sustain us through thick and thin. And that brings us back to the teaching aspect of Deuteronomy 6 to 7, right?
Exactly. It's not enough to just create the right environment. We also need to be actively teaching our kids about God.
Equipping them with the knowledge and understanding they need to navigate the world.
So it's this two-pronged approach, right?
Yeah, we need to be intentional about creating a home environment that reflects our faith, and we need to be actively teaching our kids about God.
And recognizing that this is a lifelong process, not something we can just check off a list.
Which brings us back to that idea of Deuteronomy 6 to 7 being a journey.
Yes. It's about faithfully walking with God and inviting our children to come along with us.
It's about embracing all of it, the ups and downs, the twists and turns, and trusting that God is with us every step of the way.
And remembering that we're not alone on this journey.
We have our church communities, our friends and family, and most importantly, we have God's grace.
That's so important to remember. Parenting is hard. It's probably one of the hardest things we'll ever do. But we don't have to do it alone.
Okay, so we've talked about the importance of modeling teaching and creating a home environment that reflects our faith. But I'm curious, what are some practical ways we can do that?
Well, one thing that really stood out to me from these sermons was the emphasis on integrating faith into everyday moments.
Okay, so not just designated family devotions.
Right. It's about finding ways to talk about God in the midst of everyday life.
So making faith a natural part of our conversations.
Exactly. It could be as simple as thanking God for a beautiful sunset, or talking about how God is at work in the world as you're driving to school, or using a news story as a springboard to discuss a biblical principle.
It's about those little teachable moments.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be complicated or profound.
It's just about creating a space where faith is a natural part of the conversation, not something we shy away from.
And I think that goes back to building those strong relationships with our kids.
Yeah, if we have that foundation of trust and connection, they're more likely to be open to those conversations.
You're absolutely right. And don't forget the importance of community. Remember, Abundant Life Church highlighted that research about how having multiple caring adults in a child's life can really make a difference.
It takes a village, right?
Exactly. We need to be thinking about how we can create that kind of support system within our churches where kids have multiple mentors and role models.
So to sum up, we're talking about creating a home environment that reflects our faith, actively teaching our kids about God integrating faith into everyday moments and building strong relationships.
That's it. And I think the most important thing to remember is that we're not striving for perfection.
We're aiming for progress.
Exactly. We're all on a journey, and we're going to make mistakes along the way. But the key is to keep moving forward, keep learning, and keep relying on God's grace.
We need to give ourselves and each other a lot of grace in this parenting journey.
Absolutely. It's not about being perfect. It's about being present, engaged, and committed to guiding our children toward a deep and lasting faith.
And celebrating the victories along the way.
Yes. Let's not get so caught up in what we're doing wrong that we forget to celebrate those moments when we see our kids growing in their faith.
It's about recognizing that God is at work in their lives, even when we don't see it.
And trusting that he'll bring about his purposes in his perfect timing.
Okay, I'm feeling so encouraged and inspired. We've covered a lot of ground, but I'm sure there's even more to unpack when it comes to Deuteronomy 6 to 7.
Well, there always is. And that's what makes this journey so exciting. There's always something new to discover, always a new way to apply these ancient truths to our modern lives.
All right, I'm ready for more.
Yeah.
What other insights did these pastors have to share?
Well, one thing that really struck me was the emphasis on the power of storytelling.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more about that. How are these pastors using stories to bring Deuteronomy 6 to 7 to life?
Several of the sermons we reviewed use stories both biblical and contemporary to illustrate their points and make the message more relatable and engaging. It's like they're tapping into the power of narrative to connect with their listeners on a deeper level.
Well, they use stories in all sorts of ways, like to illustrate key points, make the message more relatable and engaging.
Okay, but do any specific examples come to mind?
Yeah, for sure. Like how SCN Live used the story of Abraham and Sarah.
Oh, right. To highlight that long-haul faith.
Exactly. They connected their decades-long wait for a child to the ongoing commitment we see in Deuteronomy 6 to 7.
It's like they're saying, hey, raising kids in faith, it's not about instant results. It's about that patient, persistent discipleship.
Yeah, and trusting God's timing even when things don't happen right away. It's a story that resonates on so many levels, because so many people long for family and struggle with things like infertility. And it reminds us that God is faithful.
Yeah, even when it feels like he's taking forever.
And you know what else? It reminds us that some of the greatest lessons are learned through the waiting, through the struggles.
When we feel like giving up.
Exactly. That's when our faith is refined, when our dependence on God deepens.
Oh, and another story that stood out was Highest Praise Church's analogy of the football coach.
Coach Kelly, right?
Yeah, the one who insists on seeing his players actually run the plays, not just talk about them.
Oh, yeah. They were using that to illustrate the actions speak louder than words principle.
Because we can't just lecture our kids about faith. We have to live it out in front of them.
Be living examples of what it means to follow Jesus.
And it's not about being perfect or anything. Like, it's okay to admit our mistakes,
Let our kids see us relying on God's grace.
Yeah, show them that faith is a journey we're all on together.
I love that. Takes the pressure off of being the perfect parent.
And it focuses on the beauty of growing together as a family,
Okay, so we've got biblical stories like Abraham and Sarah. We've got these modern analogies like the football coach and even pop culture references like Mickey Mouse Clubhouse.
Right. It seems like we can find inspiration for these stories everywhere.
Yeah, from the Bible to everyday life.
And I think that's the beauty of Deuteronomy 6 to 7. It's this timeless principle that we can apply in so many ways.
Using stories that connect with our own unique experiences.
Exactly. It's about being creative, finding ways to make these ancient truths come alive.
Okay, so it's not just about memorizing the verse. It's about weaving it into the very fabric of our kids' lives.
And remember, we don't have to do this alone. We've got each other, we've got our churches, and most importantly, we've got the Holy Spirit.
It's a team effort. Parents, church leaders, mentors, we all have a part to play.
And what's so exciting is that we're part of something much bigger than ourselves. We're not just raising kids, we're building this legacy of faith.
That's a powerful thought. It really gives meaning to everything we do.
Right. And it reminds us that even the smallest actions can make a difference. A conversation, a bedtime story, a shared experience. These things can plant seeds of faith.
So what's one final takeaway you'd want our listeners to remember about this whole idea of Deuteronomy 6 to 7?
I think the most important thing is to remember that God is with us. He's not just watching from a distance. He's actively involved in our lives and our kids' lives.
So we can trust him to lead us and guide us.
Absolutely. And let's not forget to pray for our kids, for ourselves as parents, and for God to move in powerful ways in their lives.
So well said. Well, folks, it looks like we've reached the end of our deep dive into Deuteronomy 6 to 7. And wow, I feel so inspired by all these creative approaches to this familiar passage. It's like we've uncovered a whole new layer of meaning.
Me too. These pastors have given us so much to think about, practical ideas for bringing this ancient wisdom to life.
And they've reminded us that Deuteronomy 6 to 7 isn't just about rules. It's about this lifelong journey of discipleship.
A journey filled with challenges and rewards. And ultimately the joy of walking with God and sharing that with the next generation.
And you know what? They've really highlighted the power of stories.
Stories that engage our hearts and shape our imaginations and make faith come alive.
So as we wrap up today, remember the power of story. Tell your stories. Listen to the stories of others.
And trust in the God who is writing the greatest story of all.
That's a beautiful thought to end on. Thanks for joining us today on this deep dive into Deuteronomy 6:6-7. We hope you found it insightful and encouraging. Until next time, keep seeking, keep exploring, and keep trusting in the one who holds it all together.